Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Brett Davis. Joining me today is the Center Square's investigative reporter, TJ Martinell. You recently authored a story headlined, "What Will New I-5 Bridge Look Like?" This, of course, is a reference to the long-planned bi-state project to replace the aging Interstate 5 bridge over the Columbia River between Vancouver, Washington, and Portland, Oregon. According to cost estimates from late last year, it's going to cost anywhere between $5 billion and $7.5 billion. So your story contains a little bit of information about where the project is in terms of funding. Can you go into that a little bit for us?
Yeah, so just for background for people who may not be aware, this is a project that they've been trying to work on since the early 2010s. There was a initial proposal that went down in flames. So this has been an effort since, I think, around 2017 to try and get, because the two states have to work together on this, Oregon and Washington State. And so right now they've got enough money committed from both sides. Washington has committed $1 billion in their new transportation package. And then Oregon has committed $1 billion through a series of bonds that they're going to sell through the next couple bienniums. That's important because they need to get federal funding as well. And the federal funding usually doesn't come until the states have secured their side of it, because what they're going to be applying for is a bunch of grants that's going to pay for a huge chunk of the project.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned earlier how the project had gone down in flames, so to speak. I think it was back in 2013 when they called it the Columbia River Crossing Project back then.
Yeah.
It was doomed because the Washington State Senate failed to advance a $450 million transportation package that was to contribute to the project. Oregon was already on board, but Washington didn't get on board, so didn't fly back then. So hopefully they have better luck this time.
Yeah, the major reason why it is purported to have gone down is because of the light rail aspect of it that people didn't want to pay for. They didn't want light rail coming in. They were probably more in favor of bus rapid transit. So they're going to be looking at that potentially. What they are also going to be doing that was controversial is the tolling aspect, because that's going to pay for a huge chunk of it. And the reason that was controversial for the Washington side is because people commute from Washington in the Vancouver area to Portland. Not a lot of people commute from Portland to Washington State.
Right. Kind of a one-way street, as it were.
It means that the Washington residents are going to be paying the vast majority of the tolling revenue.
Right. So according to your story, also various bridge designs are being considered. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah. So there's different options that they have, and some of them are aesthetic, whether they should have towers and it's supported by cables, whether it should just be no towers and it's a very simple, sleek design. One of them is a double truss, so that means that there's going to be a lower level and an upper level. The lower level would be for cyclists and pedestrians walking. And then the other question that they're going to be looking at is whether to make the bridge movable, meaning it would raise itself for ships passing underneath. And there's a design that would allow them to not have to do that. It would go up to 113 feet, the clearance level. But the Coast Guard is the one that gives approval for the bridge designs in this case. So they are requesting that they look at one that goes up even higher. That would be movable. So that's another option that they're looking at. And so,
is there a cost increase associated with this?
Yes, it's going to cost $400 to $500 million more if they decide to do a movable bridge design.
I'll be interested to see what the cost estimate on this is. I know I did a piece late last year where I had mentioned at the beginning that the price had gone up. It was a little bit less before that, but I wonder if the cost will go up again given the supply chain snafus and the economy.
Yeah, because they're working on the draft supplemental environmental impact statement process, which is quite a mouthful. But what it means is they're going to be looking at the different designs, seeing how much is it going to cost, how long is it going to take, what supplies are going to be needed, what's going to be obviously the environmental impact. And that's just the draft. And they're going to have to pick an actual bridge design and go through that process. So by the time they're done with that process and they've got everything approved, they've got their permits, how much is it actually going to cost? That's going to be a big question. And so that very likely could impact the decision whether to have a movable bridge design. Is going to be, are they going to stay within budget? Because going back to the issue of these are two states working together on this. And if there's a cost increase, who's going to pick up the extra tab? Is it going to be
that can make for some interesting political fights in the future?
Right. And, you could have people in Southwest Washington basically pushing back, and it causes the kind of gridlock we saw with the Columbia River crossing project.
Now, is there a timeline on when they're going to pick a final design?
Yeah, they're going to pick it sometime next year. There's no specified date or month, just sometime next year.
All right. Well, we look forward to your continued coverage of this ongoing story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For TJ Martinell, this is Brett Davis. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.